In Sencha Touch, the basic building block for creating an interface is the panel. Each panel can display HTML content, or it can be treated as a container to hold other panels. Sencha Touch provides two distinct mechanisms for positioning panels with respect to their containers. You can either dock a panel so that it sticks to one of the edges of its container, which is ideal for creating toolbars. Or you can use a layout that will handle the positioning of one or more panels. The layouts work either by neatly arranging inner panels to use the available space, or by just showing one panel at a time and providing some way of changing the focus between panels. In this screencast, I will demonstrate each of the different layout types, then go on to show how they can be combined in any way you can think of. The default layout type is Auto. This causes a panel to behave much like a regular block-level element in an HTML document. The panel will fill the entire available width, but it will only occupy as much height as is required to accommodate the content. If you want to make a panel fill the entire available space, you can use the Fit layout type. As you can see, this causes the panel to stretch vertically as well as horizontally. The Fit layout is perfect if you only want to add a single component to a panel, but it won't work if you add any additional components after that. The Card layout is similar to Fit in that it only displays a single panel at a time. Whereas the Fit layout can only accept a single item, the Card layout will accommodate multiple components. In this example, I have deliberately assigned the root panel to a global variable so that I can access it in the JavaScript console. The root panel uses a card layout and contains 3 items: red, amber, and green panels. If we look at it in the browser, you'll see that only the first component is visible. But if I open the console, I can manipulate the root panel programmatically. Calling rootPanel.setActiveItem1 will reveal the amber panel, and calling rootPanel.setActiveItem2 will reveal the green panel. The card layout provides a programmatic interface for switching focus between panels, but it doesn't provide a user interface. In Sencha Touch, there are 2 specialized kinds of panel that do provide a user interface to the card layout: the carousel and the tab panel. So let's have a look at these. If I change this panel into a tab panel, then refresh the page in the browser, you'll see that it has created a tabbed user interface. I can click on each title to activate its corresponding panel. By default, the tab panel will use a slide transition when switching focus, but you can overwrite this with the values fade, slide, flip, cube, or wipe. Whereas a regular panel allows you to specify the layout, the tab panel requires a layout of card, so if you try to set it to anything else, the value will just be ignored. I still have access to the setActiveItem function, and I can use this to change the focus between the inner panels programmatically. Now I'm going to switch the tab panel for a carousel and refresh the page in the browser. Again, this uses a card layout, so only one panel is visible at a time. But instead of using tabs to switch, I can just swipe from side to side. Notice too how the indicator at the bottom gives a sense of how many panels there are and which page you are on. By default, the carousel works horizontally, but the direction parameter can be set to either horizontal or vertical. So far, I've shown that the Fit layout is suitable for a single panel, and that the card layout can hold multiple panels, but it will only display one at a time. So what if you want to display more than one panel simultaneously? That's where the HBox and VBox layouts come in. Here, I'm going to switch the card layout for VBox. When I refresh the browser, you'll see that all 3 panels are visible, but they only occupy as much height and width as their content requires. To make the panels use all available horizontal space, I can set the Align parameter to stretch. This makes it look just the same as if layout was set to auto. But the VBox layout offers much more control over how components occupy the vertical space. The pack parameter is set to start by default, but it can also take the values center and end. This affects the vertical positioning of the panels. You can control the vertical height of each individual panel using the flex parameter. This specifies the proportion of vertical space that each panel will occupy. If I set flex to 1 for each panel, they will occupy the same amount of height. What I've done here is to specify the value for flex on every panel within the box. But there's a quicker and drier way of doing this, which is to create a hash of default values, including the flex parameter. Now I can remove the flex setting from each individual panel. The V-box layout distributes panels vertically. There is also an H-box layout which arranges panels horizontally. This can also be tweaked using align, pack, and flex parameters, but each one works from left to right rather than from top to bottom. Every panel can be treated as a component in itself, or as a container for other panels, so it's possible to nest panels together using different layouts for each one. Here, I've created a root-level panel that fills the screen. It contains 3 panels arranged using a V-box layout, with align and flex set up so as to use all of the available space. The top changer, center changer, and bottom changer panels are all carousels, each containing 3 panels of different colours. If we take a look at this in the browser, you'll see 3 strips of colour stretching to fill the available vertical space. That's the V-box behaviour. But each coloured panel is itself just one of 3 cards arranged in a carousel. So I can swipe each of these to mix and match the colours. Let's take this to the next level and switch out the inline styles for classes. In my style sheet, I've created rules that apply a background image to each panel in the carousel. I'm also using the background size contain rule, which will scale the image to fit when the panels change size. Now, when I refresh the browser, I get to switch the head, torso, and legs of a little monster. I found these illustrations on Flickr, and they are distributed under a Creative Commons license. That means I can remix and redistribute them as long as I give credit to the original artist. So I want to add one more panel containing a link to the illustrator's website. Let's see what happens if I add this directly to the items array. The V-box layout causes this item to occupy the same amount of vertical space as the 3 carousels. I would prefer to make the panel containing the credits take up no more room than it needs to. Ideally, I'd just like to stick it to the bottom of the containing panel. This can be achieved by moving the credits panel from the items array to the docked items array. Setting the dock property to bottom fixes it to the bottom of its container. And that achieves the desired result. In practice, you will find that many common interface patterns for building mobile applications are provided by one of Sencha Touch's more specialised panel types. But the layouts covered in this episode will be a great help on those occasions when you need to build something more bespoke.